Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Ajay, and today we are going to understand the basic difference in detail. In fact, we're going to understand the difference between a RAM and a ROM. So many a times we hear these words RAM and ROM. What exactly it is and why do we require it? It is what this tutorial is all about. Okay. So RAM, everybody knows the full form of RAM, that is the random access memory, right? And ROM. So we're going to understand the difference between the two. Okay, so the RAM stands for random access memory and the ROM, which stands for read only memory. Random access memory, read only memory. And then I've written something like it is a volatile memory. Okay, so our RAM is a volatile memory. Volatile means it will able to retain its data till the time there is a power supply to your computer, which means till the time your computer is on, the data will be present onto the RAM. But once you switch off your computer, the data from the RAM gets erased. Okay, so that's the meaning of volatile memory. At the other hand, if you talk about ROM, ROM is read-only memory. It is only used to read the memory and it is a non-volatile memory. Non-volatile means it will be able to retain the data even if there is no power supply. So which means even if your computer is off, still there is a data present onto the ROM. It is what it means. Okay, so that's the meaning of non-volatile memory, which means again if there is no power supply, still the data is present onto your ROM. Now what exactly these two memory does for us or for the computer, that is what we are going to understand. Okay, so in detail we are going to understand. Now let's first talk about the RAM, and as you can see, it retains the data till there is a power supply, and this it retains data even when there is no power supply. Okay, so let's start with RAM now. So RAM, it is used for program execution. That's the, in very short you can say that RAM is used for program execution, which means every software that you run onto your computer, okay, it gets loaded onto the RAM. So every software that you run, it runs through the RAM. Understand it? Okay, see, this is your computer. Okay, so and this, assume that is your RAM memory that's inside this CPU cabinet. Okay, now one thing you understand, that as I said that every program runs or gets loaded onto the RAM. So your OS, that might be your Windows operating system or the Linux or some other operating system, is always present onto the RAM. So whenever you check your RAM, okay, even though you're not doing anything, still some part of your RAM is always occupied. And why it is occupied? Because of your OS. Okay, so your OS is always present into the RAM, and it is only because it's present onto the RAM it is able to control the machine. You can operate the machine. Understand it? Okay, only because of the OS, that is your operating system. Okay, and suppose now you have started working with MS Word. So that particular program will also get loaded onto the RAM, and who will load that program? Your OS will do that work for you. Okay, after that maybe you are playing a music at the background. You can also play a music. We can do multitasking also, right? And then there are so many other system programs that are running at the background. Okay, so the OS also runs many system programs at its background to make sure that your computer runs smoothly. Okay, and then there might be some other programs also, right? Then these programs, okay, the CPU then fetches the instruction from these programs and it will decode it. Decode means it will execute it. So the CPU then take the instruction by instruction from these programs, from this software, and then it will start decoding it. So we will say that the CPU will execute the programs. Okay, so the RAM, that's the memory unit, and the processor, that's the CPU, they work together. Understand it. So this is what the RAM exactly does. So we always say that the RAM should be of a better capacity. Okay, what if the RAM is of low capacity? What will happen? That we will see. Okay, assume that your RAM is of low capacity. Let us assume that this is a RAM. Okay, so the OS is always present in the RAM, first thing. Okay, then maybe you have started working on a CorelDRAW, which is a graphic software, which is a big software, so it will occupy some memory. And then maybe you are playing music at the background, then you are also browsing the net, you are just downloading some pictures for the graphic work. Okay, and then there are some system programs running at the background, right? Then there is an antivirus. Suppose you have an antivirus, so the antivirus also runs at the background. It keeps track whether everything is going right with your system or not. If there is any virus, then it will do its work. But these are the programs that always work at the background, right? And then there are some other programs you have started working on, right? Now what is happening over here is, one after the other, there are so many programs into the RAM. Since the capacity of this RAM is very low, so what is happening, this particular RAM is now under pressure. You can say that this is under pressure now, right? And once this RAM comes under pressure, what will happen, that your system will come under pressure. And what will happen, once it comes under pressure, your computer, there is a possibility that your computer will get hanged. Okay, so this is the most important thing, that why we should have a better capacity RAM. So always we say that at least we require a 4 GB RAM or a 8 GB RAM to make sure the computer runs smoothly. Okay, so this is the working of RAM and why we require a better capacity RAM. Understand it. Now let's move to the ROM. ROM is used for booting. Booting means to start your computer. Once your computer is off, and next time when you switch on, it's where the ROM comes into picture. Okay, now understand, like this is your computer, and this is your RAM, and there are so many programs running onto the RAM. And as I said, if your computer is off, what will happen? All the data from the RAM will be erased. Why it will be erased? Because it cannot retain the data. It can only retain the data till the time there is power supply. Since there is no power supply, there is nothing into the RAM. Even the OS is not present into the RAM. And since there is no OS, no Windows operating system present onto your computer, how will your computer run, right? That's where the ROM comes into action. Suppose you switch on your computer. Okay, now understand, ROM is a read-only memory and it is a non-volatile memory. There is a program which is permanently stored onto your ROM. Okay, there are some startup instruction which is also called as bootstrap program. This bootstrap program, what it does, it will pick the copy of the OS, of the operating system, from your hard disk, because hard disk is the place where all the system data and the user data is stored permanently. So even hard disk is a non-volatile, because even when there is no power supply, still the data is present onto your hard disk, isn't it? So the bootstrap program will pick the program from the OS and it will load that OS onto the RAM. And once that OS gets loaded onto the RAM, then you can see there is a Windows icon that comes, logo that comes in front of you, and then you have your desktop in front of you, right? That is how the things take place at the background. And once the OS take controls of the machine, after that, whichever program you run, okay, that particular program, the OS will pick the copy and load onto the RAM. So I have these programs running that the user has loaded, right? And then there are certain system programs that are running at the background. Okay, so this is how the entire working of RAM and ROM works. Now, just for more information, let us understand the difference between RAM and ROM for your smartphone. Okay, in a smartphone also we have a RAM and a ROM. Okay, for example, this is your desktop computer and this is your smartphone. Now in desktop, there is something called as the processor, plus there is a RAM, plus there is a ROM, and plus there is a hard disk. But as far as your smartphone is concerned, okay, you normally see the configuration like 4 GB RAM and 32 GB internal memory, and normally this is what you see, that is ROM over here. So for the smartphone, there is a processor and there is a RAM and there is a ROM, but there is no hard disk. Now there are two reasons for it. The first reason is you do not switch off your mobile phone after you get your job done. Okay, just like what we do it on a computer. Your mobile normally is always on. So the working of ROM is almost all very less. At times it might happen that your smartphone is off and then you need to switch it on. Only then the picture of ROM comes into action. Understand it. Second, to having a separate hard disk will actually increase the complexity of the entire architecture of your mobile device. Understand, mobile device is a very compact device, so there is no separate hard disk. So what they have done is the ROM and the hard disk is one and the same thing. Okay, so the ROM plus hard disk are combined together as a ROM. Understand it. Okay, so over there the ROM is a hard disk also, and a very small part of that actually does the work of a ROM, and rest of the part of the ROM is actually your hard disk. So this is what the difference is between a desktop and your smartphone as far as the RAM and ROM is concerned. So I hope that this entire tutorial is now very much clear to you, and anybody will ask you what exactly is the difference between a RAM and a ROM, I hope that you can immediately answer it. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you really think that you have gained some knowledge out of this tutorial, I would expect you to subscribe to my channel. Okay, that's it for today. Bye for now.